A recording and or broadcast of this meeting is being made at the direction of the board, which may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. Call the roll. Steve?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Vladimir?
Yep.
Shally? Here. And I'm here. All of us are present. Let's get up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Are there any students from Block who would like to lead us? Excellent. All right.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, on to agenda approval. Any board members would like to comment on the agenda? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. On to closed session report. There is nothing to report. We made no action in closed session. On to superintendent's update.
All right, I have a few things for you. One, just, I know we were all at Junior Olympics, so a week and a half ago. It was such a great time. Want to thank our PTA and parent volunteers for putting on an amazing event. Our staff, especially our PE staff, who helps run so many of the different events, and most importantly, our students. It's so much fun to see everybody out there competing and having amazing sportsmanship. One of my favorite events of our year for our district. Speaking of events, this Sunday from 4 to 7, we have our LASD Community Festival. That's where we're co-hosting with LAEF. We are expecting, I don't know what the number is up to now, but maybe 15 different booths, could be more, of activities. We've got 8 or 9 food trucks coming out. We will be having a district booth. So I think Bridget's going to spend a little bit of time there. We have an ambassador or two who might be there to welcome new families. Perhaps we might want to have a trustee rotation to welcome people from the community and answer any questions. So we'll get that organized before Sunday, but looking forward to that great event. This Wednesday, I should have put these in chronological order, but I did not at all. This Wednesday at Egan, we are celebrating our CSEA and LATA Employees of the Year, 4 o'clock Wednesday afternoon. We hope you will join us. It's a great time to celebrate all of the amazing employees we have within our district. So it's always a fun time. And speaking of appreciation, over the next 2 weeks, I believe starting tomorrow, we have our Rocco's Tacos food truck that will be going out school to school over the next 2 weeks for our version of staff appreciation. So I think I shared with you a calendar if you want to, you don't even have to sign up, but if you want to show up and just show your appreciation to staff, you are welcome to join any or all of those events. And then just a reminder, on the 15th, we have our next board meeting, the 15th in the evening, but during the day from 10 to 2, we're going to have our study session. We're finalizing our agenda for that. We'll review that this week, Jessica, but we're excited to kind of get into some meat around bonding, facilities master planning, and construction around the 10th site. So those will be our big topics for conversation. And then I'll let Jessica and or Shally talk about our coast to coast adventure.
You have to wait to the end of the meeting.
Great tune.
Moving on to the school presentation, we have Block School. Mr. Land.
Welcome, Mr. Land.
Hi. Good to see everyone. I'm Greg Land, principal of Block School. I brought some friends today in the back. They'll be helping us out today. So without further ado, let's get started. Wanted to bring in our falcon there, our new logo. We're contemplating it. It looks a little bit more severe, so we're thinking about it. So it came into the.
Angry Falcon.
Yeah, it's very serious falcon. We're serious middle school.
The high school eagle.
But to start, I really wanted to talk about like what we've all talked about, you've seen this a lot, but the portrait of a block learner. One of the things that I've been really excited about to share with you is all the things that we have integrated in everything that we do. We think about character with our homerooms, and we talk about activities in homerooms to do that. We really love creativity and do that in many different forms, and you're going to see a little of that tonight. Critical thinking has been at the forefront of what we do in every class. We bring in citizenship. In fact, in the back, you've got a great group of kids who are really helping out in some ways, and they're going to talk a little bit more about it. Collaboration has been key, and the same with how to communicate, and you'll see that again with the kids tonight. So I'm going to do just a little bit of the presentation, but most of it is going to be the kids, the students. So I did want to talk and celebrate our academics. These are our CAS tests from last year. What I wanted to really bring to your attention is, you know that we were in COVID for so long, and for us to do so successful in that first year back. I mean, when you look at these statistics and you look at some other schools, 89% meet or exceeded in English language arts, 84% in math exceeded or meets. These are outstanding statistics that I think a lot of schools are jealous of, and that's just amazing results just after such a difficult time. So I just wanted to say, and one of the things that I would say about that, and again, if you want to do some comparisons, here's some comparisons, at least overall for English language arts. You have the same, block, as well as Los Altos in general, have very great statistics. But compared to the state of California, I mean, there's a huge difference. And it's just, again, kudos to what we do and the rigor that we have in our schools. Again, I'm going to say the same thing, even more so in mathematics. I think the only thing I want to point out is 16% exceeded in the state of California, and block was at 67%. I mean, just something to celebrate. Again, I wanted to bring this up because of the post-COVID era. It's like, we still have lots to do, but we're doing something right. And that something right, I think, has a lot to do with this. At the beginning of the year, when I did back to school night, and all the parents got to say hi at the very beginning before they rushed off to all their classes, I talked about a book that a friend of mine wrote called Finding the Magic in Middle School. His name's Chris Baum, and he was basically an entrepreneur, very Silicon Valley guy who was really creating an apprenticeship program called Spark. And that's how I met him many years ago in Redwood City. He has done lots of charter schools and I don't want to say that word, but I forgot. But he's created lots of schools internationally as well as in the United States. And from that, he wrote a book that really just was a aha for me. Basically talks about why middle school is so important. And we all know that it's a very difficult time. It's a very awkward time, and it's a very challenging time. In fact, a lot of people say, I would never be a middle school teacher, but there's magic there. And the magic is about what it really is all about. In elementary school, the kids find their friends and they do their connections and everybody's happy and jolly, and that's great. By the time you get to middle school, you're trying to find out who you are, trying to figure out who you are. By high school, you kind of figured it out in the Breakfast Club, right? We are, right? You know what I mean? At least everyone out here. Not everyone. What? But by middle school, what's really important in middle school is to create an environment where you can experiment and try different things, be part of different clubs, be part of different sports, be part of different things, try different classes, try different electives. And I think, and if you create a safe space for that and allow for that, the sky's the limit, because then they find out what they want, what they like, and they have to keep trying and trying different things. So that's kind of where we are today. So today we're going to talk about what's different at Block. So you know a lot of the great things at Block. Here's some new stuff that you might not know about. So without further ado, I'm going to start with electives. So I'm going to bring up a couple kids. So they're going to introduce themselves, and then they're going to tell all about these. So the first two are going to do engineering. So I'm going to have my two folks coming up from engineering class, and we'll get started.
My name is Neil, I'm a grader at Block and taking Mr. Leader's class twice.
Hi, I'm Blake and I'm a seventh grader at Block, and I've done both of Mr. Leader's classes.
So I've taken his class twice as a seventh grader and an eighth grader. His class is super fun. He's a really amazing teacher and really connects with all the students, teaches them well, and really makes sure everybody understands everything before we move on. During my second year of attending his class, he gave us a new unit that was new to the block. It was drones. We learned how to make them from a kit and learn how to fly them from an app that was on these little phones. He taught us how to make them and fine tune them so that they could fly perfectly and hover in the same spot. He even let us design our own drone bodies near the end of the unit that we could fly. Teaching students about drones is a brilliant idea because it teaches the students about the electrical and material side of engineering. With designing our own drone bodies, we got to learn what is important about when designing vehicles, like the weight and aerodynamics. Drones are something that should be taught because the many different parts of drones are used in many of the modern world, like designing cars and airplanes.
Cool, as you already know, my name is Blake, and I did both engineering and Maker Lab. And if you don't know what Maker Lab is, it's elective where you have a couple of starter projects where they get your creativity going, and then you get to pick whatever thing you want. And it's all up to your design. So you spend a couple days researching, and I found a skimboard. And there's multiple different types of projects you can make. You can make a bunch of small ones, you can use kits if you want. You can make big projects like this, which nothing like close to a kit. But for me, how I did this was I cut it out of a big piece of wood. Like this was a massive piece of plywood. I shaped it, gave it a bit of a curve, and stained it and varnished it. And of course, Mr. Lee was there to help me with all the materials and of course cutting it out and everything else. But really it's just the freedom in Maker Lab that helps make it so unique, as he didn't guide me in any way. He would just help me to make my dream come to life. And I think that's what's really special about Maker Lab. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about our new broadcasting elective. So broadcasting, come on up.
Hi, I'm Alicia,
And Devin.
and we're here to talk about broadcasting. Broadcasting is a new elective at Block that was brought back this year by Mr. Lewer. Its goal is to teach students about video production, like writing scripts, storyboarding, filming, editing, directing, while giving them the independence to see their ideas come to life.
So usually we get a prompt like adventure or a music video, and then we get about 2 weeks to brainstorm, make a storyboard, stuff like that, and record and edit the videos. And Mr. Lever shows us all about that, stuff like different camera angles, and we learn a lot in that class.
Another thing that broadcasting does is block talk, where we make a video that Mr. Land or we as a class decide to cover, and we show that video to homerooms. And it's usually really entertaining and everyone loves it. One thing I love about broadcasting is how much we learn without being taught. For example, my friend Bernice and I learned more and more about getting the perfect shot by trial and error, by doing it ourselves. We had to think about what angle we wanted to use, or if the shot was overexposed, or all the editing things. And I think it's really valuable for students to be given that independence to learn by themselves.
We basically spent 7 periods being told what the volume of a sphere is, or how to write a perfect analysis. And I was really grateful to have a break in the day to learn in an unconventional way.
Overall, we really enjoyed broadcasting, and we think it's a great elective for students who care about creating videos. And it's really great that we get an opportunity, if we want to pursue broadcasting in the future, we get an opportunity to learn about it in middle school. Thank you.
Are you that kind of influencer?
No.
And that's the right answer. Thank you. I'm hoping that next year of broadcasting, we do a little bit more regular like broadcasts. So we're really working on that. Our next is our newest elective that just started this quarter. And I have to give credit to Mr. Ward, who's the teacher who's doing the class, but also to Zach Hansel, who helped really formulate the idea. I know our superintendent, our IST, Zach Hansel, sorry, thank you. And a little help from Superintendent McGonigal as well, because she had the idea and saw it somewhere, and it was like, really, we took it and ran with it. So without further ado, our esports group, come on, esports, come on out.
Hi, I'm Flynn Sanders. I'm an 8th grader at Block.
Hi, Martha Mia, I'm an 8th grader at Block.
I am Tyler Signes. I'm an 8th grader at Block.
We're here to talk about the game theory and design elective.
In our class, skills such as cooperation and engagement are not only taught, but encouraged. The esports industry gives kids all over the world an opportunity to, or I can't right now. Okay, restart. The esports industry gives opportunities to kids who do not want to play physical sports an opportunity to express themselves in video games.
However, the game theory and design class isn't just for playing video games, but instead you get to learn about how to organize events, think strategically, collaborate and communicate with your peers, lead others to success, and even build confidence. Currently, we are learning about entrepreneurship and how to make a living off content creation if students wish to do that in their future.
Another important aspect we have covered is planning events. Recently, the game theory and design class planned a gaming room at the dance that we had a few months ago. Students that went to the dance could come in and play video games for 30 minutes at a time if they were interested to. To prepare, the class created posters for advertisements, and we created a tournament inside the gaming room where students could compete and participate in if they so chose to.
Additionally, we recorded the tournament utilizing a software called OBS, a broadcasting application that can record audio and video to one's needs. We used it to record the Nintendo Switches that were on the tournament throughout the duration of the tournament. Furthermore, I was in charge of setting up the software and the computers for this, recording the tournament itself, and I also commentated on the finals of the tournament.
In conclusion, this class can be beneficial for students who are dreaming of a career in the esports or gaming industry and provide the opportunities and resources needed to make those dreams come true.
Hi, I'm Tyler again, and I was participating in the tournament, and just a few things I would like to say is that in the tournament, it was really fun just being there and like being able to play against people who thought that they thought they were an equal skill level or possibly even better. Yeah, and it was such a fun time being able to play against other people who had the same interests as me as compared to playing against my friends. And so I really loved how they just did it in general, like how it was presented. And I loved how everybody in the audience that wanted to see us play could.
Thank you for your time, and thank you to LAEF for funding this program. I really hope to see it expand in the future.
I did not plan to say that. I did not, but I also want to say, Tyler, who won the tournament? So, yes.
When they have another tournament, I've never seen an esports tournament. So, would you invite the board?
Oh, yeah,
We'd
please,
love to
Right?
see
for
it.
sure.
Definitely. Well, you'll be our guest of honor. Guest of honor. All right. Also, there's one thing I forgot. They actually made a logo that I was get to you guys. And so they created a logo called Block Esports, like a company. And so I was gonna give you those stickers. I left them at school. So they'll be in your box. They'll be in your mail. Next, I did want to touch on MTSS, or multi-tier support services. We do have a new class called Literacy Workshop, which is a class that is for kids who are struggling in reading. They're either a year behind or they need some help, and they're not special education students. These are students who need help or just behind. And so what we did this year for 2 semesters, and we had about 6-7 kids in the class. And in that class, they got the specialized help assistance that actually started in elementary school. So this is kind of an extension of what happened in elementary school with the LLI program. And we've kept that going onto this level. And what we've noticed is they've made at least 1 year's growth, almost sometimes 2 years growth. So I would say the first semester we had about 4 of the kids at grade level. So they went from maybe 2 grade levels behind to at grade level by the end. They made it to Z, is the Lexile level that we're talking about. So So this semester, I think we're doing the same. I don't have the end results because we don't have the final literary scores. All right, that's all I'm gonna do. Next, and oh, there, okay, so there's the logo. That's what you're gonna get. You're gonna each get a sticker. The first one is the broadcasting, and the other two are the drones. And I do want to tell you that we have someone who was supposed to be here, Kiana. She was supposed to be here. And she is really advocating for the cost, but she couldn't because she's in a sports event and she couldn't make it. So she sends her apologies. And that's how we got Tyler wrote there to come to us. All right, next, we're gonna introduce clubs. And so Jenna, you wanna come up and be our, okay, all right, next is clubs.
Hi, I'm Janet. I'm Coco. And we are both 8th graders at Block. At our school, we believe middle school is a time for you to find your passion. Our numerous clubs make that possible. We want there to be a club for everyone and a place for everyone. The clubs at Block signify trying new things and the opportunity to try something out of your comfort zone. For example, I would have never thought of joining D&D or Dungeons and Dragons Club, but of course, my friends introduced me and I played with them for many weeks. The club fair is also a perfect place to find a club that suits you. There are stalls put up for each club, and you can sign up for the ones most intriguing to you. Also, creating clubs that suits you is so easy. All you have to do is think of a creative idea, find a teacher to sponsor your club, and find a few friends. That's it. Anyway, now I would like to introduce to you some of my favorite clubs. First, we have the Alphabet Association. At our school, we value diversity and the choice to choose who you want to be. We value our queer and allied population, and we want to support them in any way we can. This club makes everyone feel safe and welcome, no matter your gender or sexuality. Another club I feel is important is the Environmental Club. They do some amazing stuff for our school, such as setting up bins to put the lunch trays in so they don't get thrown in the wrong garbage cans. These are people who are passionate about the environment and want to start helping by fixing our school. Finally, one of my personal favorite clubs is the Cooking and Baking Club. Baking and cooking are some of my passions, and the diverse recipes we make are so delicious and really help us build our skills. We've made stuff from crepes to tacos to Lebanese food, and we learn about the culture in each. As you can see, our clubs help with community building and social skills, but are also a fun place for everyone and also join.
I'm gonna talk about 2 of my favorite clubs. Personally, I enjoy D&D Club as well. It's Dungeons and Dragons. It's so few people get chosen as dungeon masters. Mr. Land is the sponsor, so I just want to put that out there. Mr. Land's amazing. So I think in the beginning of the school year, he picked a few people to start these campaigns. And then it was really fun because you got to role play, pick your character. And I personally had a lot of fun with that. There's also a BGB, which stands for Block Gives Back. So it's a philanthropy club, which basically helps people who are less fortunate. Every other Thursday, we go to this church and volunteer at Stanford where we make food boxes. And then we meet on Tuesdays during lunch. And recently, one of our projects has been to make chew toys for dogs at a local shelter. My personal absolute most favorite is speech and debate. Yeah. Yes.
Debate, Mom.
So this club's a little bit different because high schoolers come and run it. So they're part of their debate program at the high school, and then they come and teach us either parliamentary or Lincoln Douglas. I personally do parliamentary, a lot more fun. And so I recently went to this scrimmage, and my partner and I, we won. So we're just. And as I mentioned, this is one of my favorites because I love to argue. I will argue anything. My parents hate that, but like. So although some other people might not enjoy these clubs, we have such a diverse list of different clubs that somebody will find something that they enjoy. And in the rare case that they don't, they can still create one. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Not done with clubs, so let's have upstanders in our CTSF clubs come on.
Hi, I'm Yasmin. And I'm Gavin, and we're both seventh graders at Block. In the Upstanders Club, we do a lot of activities to try and help each other understand why being an upstander is important and kind of to support and accept other students around us for who they are and kind of be the most kind to everyone. And it's just a really great opportunity to learn and grow. Yeah, we do types of activities such as skits where there is a bully, a victim, and two upstanders. For example, you might have somebody bullying the victim and then the upstanders come up and tell the teacher or solve the problem, whatever problem it might be. You would have obviously the solving problem one and then the one without a problem to see the difference. We also brainstormed many ideas on how we can show other people at the school how to be upstanders. And also this allows us to make new friends in the club and build on each other's ideas. So also our kind of like head of the club is Miss LeDuc, who's also our school counselor. And she's really nice and she's really smart. And if we kind of have ideas or, she kind of gives us feedback and lets us know, what's the best to do for certain situations or how to act and how to be the best student and upstander and person you could be. So I do think it is a good use of time, really, because there's a lot of us that are going to be, it's only seventh graders, so it's going to be us next year also showing new seventh graders on how to be upstanders. And I think we're planning on sending out some skit videos to the school to show other people what to do and what not to do. Yeah, so we really love the Upstanders Club because we think it's a really good opportunity to be kind of just a really good person at school and stand up for others, make people feel included and accepted for who they are. Like Mr. Lynn was saying, there's people kind of in middle school, they're figuring out who they want to be. And if, if that person is feeling uncomfortable, then we can say, oh, I learned this in the Upstanders Club. I am going to stand up for this person and I'm going to make them feel good in front of the bully or, so, we love the episodes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Erin and I'm an 8th grader at Block. So CJSF, also known as California Junior Scholarship Federation, is a club that fosters high standards of scholarship, service, and citizenship. CGSF emphasizes service to the school and community while encouraging pride in scholastic achievements in all of its members. There are things like that CGSF contributes to Block, like the school beautification we had last year, where we had CGSF members come together and weed out some of the weeds and like clean classrooms for teachers and like overall help the campus look nicer. We also have fun events for members, like Miss LeDuc, school counselor who leads this club, plans fun events for all of the members. So there would be like food, there would be games, and like we would all come together and have a fun time. The tutoring services for all of the students at Block. So students that qualify for CGSF will can volunteer to tutor other people at Block. So I think right now we have 2 people being tutored, and I honestly think it's a really good idea to have other students tutor people at Block, especially because this also means that this might strengthen like relationships. We also have community services. We've supported Panda Express in the past, and I think we're going to support Little Caesars in the near future. So a portion of the funds goes to CGSF to plan better events, to fund all these things that we can do. And CGSF is solely led by amazing Block students and our amazing counselor, Miss LeDuc. And I just want to add on that I don't think Egan has this club. So
North side, south side.
Didn't tell her to say that either. Right, but I do want you to see all the diverse, all the pictures that we have. In the middle, you'll see the table when we had our block fair, club fair, for people to sign up, and that is the Block Gives Back group. You see in the corner over there, D&D, there's CGSF down there. We have our alphabet club down at the bottom there. And there's some other clubs that I'm not sure where they are. But we also have chess. We have so many different clubs. It's amazing. And gardening club, I mean, anyway, it's quite amazing. Now I'm going to introduce our leadership group. Our leadership group is going to talk a little bit about homeroom and what they do. So,
Hi, my name is Anya. I'm a seventh grader at Block.
I am I'm an eighth grader at Block.
And hi, I'm Jibo and I'm a seventh grader at Block.
So first, we're gonna talk a little bit about the homerooms we have at Block. Every Tuesday and Wednesday, we have a built-in homeroom period that are both non-academic and academic. In academic homerooms, we're giving in time for independent study hall. If you're pulled from class, which can happen if it's your subject's priority week, your teacher will pull you from class and, for example, retake a test. For example, if it was math priority week and I missed my math test, I would be pulled from class to retake my math test. On the non-academic homeroom days, we learn about the important qualities of Block students, such as resilience and respect. Additionally, we can play fun games such as board games and hangman and other bonding activities. And lastly, we view leadership slides that inform us about Immune Leagues, Fun Fridays, and other important announcements.
Another event that leadership runs is the New League tournaments between homerooms. We run them throughout the year. So the New League tournaments that we make are usually consist of sports that other homerooms compete against each other for to earn homeroom points to eventually get a pizza party. So some New League tournaments that we had this year has been volleyball, basketball, soccer, and capture the flag. They're all really fun and they'll help make the school like more fun place and have like competition, competitiveness, and like everyone gets to express themselves.
Other things that we do in leadership are Fun Fridays, and you may be asking, what's a Fun Friday? The Fun Friday is the leadership hosting trivias and competitions, and you compete against other homeroom classes for homeroom points. And there are a lot of Fun Fridays that we've done. And my personal favorites are the Disney trivia and the Jeopardy. Those are extremely fun. And Fun Fridays provide really great interactions with the teachers and the students. And it also, for me, brings out a really competitive side of me that is not normally shown. And for the leadership elective, it provides ways to help organize and plan different events for the school and help other kids have fun together.
The leadership elective also hosts after-school events for a fun time after you come home. Our first event was the back-to-school barbecue. Here, our Spanish teacher, Senor Lopez, grilled his delicious famous barbecue. We hung out on the quad, socialized, talked about our day, and bonded leadership. Our second event was the Halloween movie night. It included food such as candy, popcorn, and hot chocolate, and a Halloween-themed movie that was not too scary. Our most recent event was the spring dance. This was Enchanted Forest themed and included Senor Lopez's famous food and an amazing DJ. Also, it included the Enchanted Forest video game tournament for those that did not want to dance. I actually helped plan this, and it does take a whole quarter to plan, but it ended up being really fun. And our upcoming event will be the ice cream social, and I'm excited to see how that turns out. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Keep moving slides, but one of the things I am going to say is the thing that's really different is instead of us calling it Jumpstart or Advisory, we call it homeroom. Why do we call it homeroom? Because it's their home, it's their home base. And so we look at it as a home base. So they do testing together, they do the events, the competitions together, they do things like, and you'll see here, I bought a whole bunch of games like Clue and Battleship and Uno, and sometimes they just spend time connecting. And I have to tell you about Mrs. Shepherd. She came to me one time and said, oh my God, that was the most fun time I've ever had with my homeroom. Was we just started playing games and I was playing part of it with them, and she just had the best time. I was like, good, this is good. Anyway, that's where we are. So suggestions and ideas for the future. So one of the things that I'm, this is a Santa Rita thing, obviously, but and it's a slide from Santa Rita, but but I changed it because one of the things I think is so important, that if you see the theme of what we did today, is the connectedness and how kids feel connected and how they're working together and giving them opportunities for different things and being proud of themselves. So I think doing that through their culture as well is just as important. So I think next year the PTA and I are going to try to organize so that we can have some sort of celebration, one big hoop brouhaha, which is International Day. We haven't figured it out yet, but we really want to foster that inclusion and appreciation of diversity at Block. Where do we go from here? So if you've seen it, so thinking about the now, we've created a lot of peak moments. We want to continue doing that. I really believe in that. And I think that really helps with long-term learning, is having those great experiences so that kids can remember and look back and say, that was something I really remembered and enjoyed. Coming with a systematic approach for MTSS. Like I said, we have our literacy workshop. I want to see if we can expand it to have a math workshop for fundamental improvement. Our care team model is amazing right now. I really love how our care team brings together, and we have a struggling student. We have the whole team of teachers come together and talk about it and come up with solutions, subject by subject, and what happens. And so that's been a great addition to Block. Building connections. As you heard, so many things going on. What I'm going to try to work on for next year is challenge day for 7th grade. So while the 8th graders are going to Yosemite, I'm going to bring in 2 days of challenge day for the whole 7th grade. And it's not easy because you have to do 2 days, because you can't just do it in one. So that's something that we're working on. More homeroom competitions we're going to do, but actually kind of interesting ones that maybe during homeroom time, and spending a little bit more time to interact with different homerooms together. So bringing that bond of not just your homeroom, but 2 homerooms together sometimes. We are really working already on Falcon Camp 3.0. What we found from our 8th graders actually is, Mr. Land, we repeat. I remember everything we did in 7th grade and we're doing it again. You need new stuff. So we got to get new material.
The first 3 days of school.
Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. So for those who don't know,
Translating.
oh my gosh. Okay. So for those who don't know, again, that whole idea of bringing the social emotional, for the first 3 days, we don't do syllabi and here you go and this. What we do is let's get to know each other. We do different events where we build and bond. We also talk about how to get through school. So teaching some study skills, how to work with a planner. So we really work on just kind of that executive functioning stuff too, or how to advocate for yourself. That's one of the things that we really promote with the new 7th graders is, hey, if you have a problem, how do you talk to the teacher? What do you do? How do you get there? So that's what Falcon Camp looks like. And we're just going to revamp it even and up it a little bit more. Hopefully we'll protect. I'm just going to go fast now. We already did the sections for international celebration, and just hopefully we can keep the schedule the way it is. I love all the offerings and hope we don't lose the offerings and I really support LAF because those electives are amazing, and trying all these new things have been really exciting. So we done. I'm sorry. But we're opening questions. I'm not going to be the only one answering questions. If y'all want to answer a question, come on up really fast, okay? All right.
Greg, I think we need to talk later on about teaching kids to argue.
Okay, you don't think that's a good idea? I don't know. Running up here. But he would. Sorry.
2 things. One, a comment. When you're having these like food things to raise money for the clubs, just let the board know, because I'm happy to go eat somewhere if I know that the money is going to our Block kids.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is I had a question about sports. So when they're playing the young man in the gray and red, he said it was great to play with kids who are not just his friends. So are they making real life friends through, like, real, like? Are you meeting new people when you're doing this?
So in the tournament, it's not just like you come with your friends and you just play against each other. No, so actually the class like makes like an entire bracket of like who you're gonna be playing against. And so you just kind of go up to them and say, hi, I'm this person and think I'm gonna be playing you in a game. Would you like to get me to know each other better? It's kind of like that.
And it's also sort of like a competitive versus a non-competitive, so you're just wanting to go there to play casually instead of dancing, you could just talk with people while playing, no real competition. There was the people who were more engaged in the game who wanted to win, and there was the competitive section, there was the people who were really competitive could sign up for the tournament, and then they could win and get that ego boost of like winning. There wasn't any prize because we didn't have enough, I don't really know why we didn't have a prize, we just didn't. But there was the tournament, was the highest level of competitive,
glory.
which Tyler won, the glory, yeah, the glory.
And inside the class, we get opportunities to players at our table. We get to know them better. We get to play games with them. We also get to play with each other in class. So we get to make a few new friends there as well.
That's fabulous.
I have a comment while you're up here, so don't leave. It's definitely a comment, not a question. My son would have loved, one of my sons would have loved this club, partly because the fact that you'd had the gaming during a dance. Like, he's in high school now and misses middle school dances where there was more than just dancing. Where there would be activities, and honestly, he loves video games and other people who like video games. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you guys. I will make one more comment. The last gentleman definitely was right. There's a very diverse group of kids in esports. And so, and I wanted to emphasize that because Kiana was supposed to be here, but she couldn't. So it is guy heavy, but not all guys. And it's very diverse. And, kids from different backgrounds and experiences coming together. So that was one of the things that I thought, bringing, and I don't want to characterize it in any which way, but very different groups. So, the groups who hang out with each other from different groups are playing the game at the same time. And that I found very a cool experience. So, any other questions? Sorry, I spent so much time. Thank you. They made me very proud. I was sitting back there going, oh,
Thank you very much. You're welcome to go home and do all your homework. Thank you. Right. All right, moving on to consent calendar. Do I have a motion, do any board members want to provide comment on the consent calendar?
I do actually. I'd like us to not vote on 6L, the DB 9220 governing board elections. There's some clauses in there about funding elections that I'd like us to revisit and come back with maybe a little more thoughtful idea there. If we could. And assuming so, I make a motion that we approve all the consent items except for 6L. Second.
All in favor? Right. Passes 5-0. All right, moving on to.
Whoa. We have the others, all the rest of them to take care.
No, we
don't.
That was
What?
everything except 6L.
Oh, I see.
Approved them all.
Sorry.
All right, moving right along to Los Altos Teachers Association.
Hi, everyone, I'm back. Again. I just wanted to take a moment tonight to acknowledge that someone very close to me passed away at the end of March. Someone who has kind of informed my union work. My grandmother passed away at the end of March, and she was a teacher for 30 years in the state of California. She was a union president, and she's one of the reasons why I wanted to take on this role. She was one of the reasons why my mom took on this role. And I just thought, it's one of those things that I think we don't always talk about with teachers, is that teachers have lives beyond the classroom. And one of the things that was so lovely for me during this really hard time was how the district and my administrator, Wade, really pulled out all the stops to support me. It happened the night before open house. And I had a moment where I thought, there's no way I can do open house the next day. And I knew that my grandmother would want me to show up. That was probably one of the best lessons she ever taught me, you show up. And I came to school the next day. I was really upset. I saw Sandra. She gave me a really great hug. I went into my office. Wade got me a substitute for the day so that I could finish setting up my classroom and get it perfect. I was able to go home and kind of gather myself. I was able to go and do the open house, and it was great, and the parents were amazing. And it just kind of reminds me that care is sometimes what teachers need. It's not always money. It's not always a comp day. Sometimes it's just a human connection, and people acknowledging the pain and the loss. And at my school this year, and I'm sure this is true at other sites too, we've had several members lose parents or family members that have been really close to them. And I think that that's kind of one of those unspoken things that we don't always talk about, that makes this district so great. And so I just want to say thank you for that support, and acknowledge that my grandmother is the reason why I'll be around to bother you for.
Thank you. We have changed the page, but it's the statute, CSEA.
Right, that's a hard act.
Yes.
Especially because I was gonna say, similar is just to look at the agenda today and to see the CSEA contract on there, the staff housing in the future, the work that the district and the board and LATA has done to create the support, financial support, especially this year for our employees. We're grateful for that and we appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Provide public comment on an agenda item. Speaker cards are to be submitted to the superintendent. Speaker cards will not be accepted once public comment begins. Your name will be announced when it's your turn to speak. We're moving on to community comments. This is a time reserved for members of the public and employees to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. The board is not permitted to discuss or take action on non-agenda items, except to instruct the superintendent to review the matter further, report back to the board at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. The board may make a brief comment or ask clarifying questions. Do we have any community comment? Moving on to action and discussion items, disclosure of the proposed collective bargaining agreement with the NCA.
All right, so as Elena said, we are excited tonight to bring to you, you had a lot of backup for this agenda item, the financial disclosure. For the impact of our collective bargaining agreement, it is a Me Too that mirrors the LATA agreement for 6% retro for this year, 6% for next year, with a little reopener should our AV come in stronger than anticipated. In addition, I know through negotiation, the team came up with a few different slight changes. Those tentative agreements were also in your packet with reclassification, so changes to job description and the like. So we're happy to answer any questions you might have about the contract, which is item 1, and then when you're ready, we'll move to item 2.
Right. Does anyone have public comment? No. All right. Any board questions or comments? All right, do I get a motion to, this is discussion, so it's the next one.
Yeah, so item 2.
Yes.
We ask that you consider approving the 22-23 negotiated agreement with CSEA tonight.
Any more comments or questions? No, all right. Do I get a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement with CSEA?
So
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Moving on to summer school preview and extended learning opportunity program update.
Good evening. It's been maybe a month or two since you've seen me. Thought I would stop by. Laura Wiley, coordinator of new categorical programs. This evening, I'm going to give you a little update about our summer programs because our summer will look a little different and a little familiar in some ways as well. And then I'll quickly give you an ELOP update because I have gotten going on next year's after school ELOP plans as well. So this summer, we are going to be at Santa Rita School like we have been for the last few years. And we have 3 major programs happening. We have ESY, which is extended school year. We have a camp with Right at School, which if you remember, is one of our new ELOP partners. And you were able to look through that contract a few months ago. And then as always, we have some summer intervention or summer support going on for our students. It will start the Tuesday, how do I keep hitting the wrong button? The Tuesday after school is out. I think we get out of school on a Thursday this week or this year. And so we'll have Monday for teachers to get some setup ready, get some prep done, take a look at their class rosters, who's walking in. Tuesday, students will come and we'll go all the way to July 1st. And for those dates, that's really the focus on ESY and summer intervention. And at that same time, camp is happening, but camp will also be an extra 2.5 weeks. And that has to do with our ELOP guidelines, saying that during the summer, we have to offer 30 non-school days to our ELOP students. So as a district, we've decided to do that during the summer. And we didn't want to give them halfway through the week. So we went ahead and added a few more. I think it's 31 days is what they have access to camp for. So here's kind of just an overview of kind of what the day looks like. And I thought this was really something to show because our camp is 9 hours long. So because of ELOP, that's one of, again, the requirements is that it's offered for 30 non-school days for 9 hours each day. So 8:30 to 5:30 is an option for camp. But of course, as I've told many parents, they can pick up students earlier if they choose to, but just knowing that parents have that whole day is really something that we haven't been able to offer in full in a really long time. I know that last year we did a little bit of camp in the afternoon, but it's really nice that parents can just drop off their student. And while they're at camp, they might receive some intervention from our LASD teachers. And I'm gonna go through what that kind of looks like of how students qualify for that. But if you can see from about 8:45 to 12:30, we'll be pulling intervention groups. That's where we'll have highly qualified Los Altos teachers doing that intervention. And then from 8:30 to 12:30, we also have our extended school year happening. And I'll tell you a little bit about that next. So extended school year, ESY, it's 18 days. And like I said, 8:30 to 12:30, you can see here all the different classes that will be part of ESY this year. We've staffed our LASD teachers. We've already done some work in hiring instructional assistants and behavior interventionists. Thanks, Erin. As well as behavior intervention techs. A lot of the conversation has already started of how to best support these students. And the way that these students qualify for ESY is that it's written into their IEP or their individualized education plan that they need those additional days during the summer. So that's the bottom line qualification there. And just because a student has an IEP doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to ESY. We also, ESY offers appointment scheduling too for students who are just owed a couple of hours over the summer, maybe of speech or OT. So that happens as well too. This year, we're trying something unique and we're gonna have 4 of our classes of our ESY at Santa Rita with the camp and the intervention. And we're keeping 3 here at Covington. That has many reasons why. Those classes have a lot of equipment and a lot to move for such a short period of time, being one of the reasons. So we're gonna see how that goes with keeping those classes here and providing the support with a secretary and principal both at Santa Rita and then a backup here at the district, just in case. So summer intervention, this will last 18 days as well. From 8:45 to 12:15, because the idea is that students who are receiving intervention will be at camp during the morning. So they'll be at camp, starts at 8:30. We'll pull our first intervention group at 8:45, and those intervention groups will go about 45 minutes. We currently have 7 teachers. So we have 28 different intervention groupings. I think it's 112 students right now that we really have already hired for to receive intervention. And so that's, like I said, 7 qualified LASD teachers. And then here I kind of broke down the qualifications of how we figured out if students needed intervention. We used a lot of our DIBELS data that we got from the DIBELS screener. So we especially use that in our KN1. That tells us a lot of information about those early reading and reading foundational skills that students are missing. And we're able to provide that tier 3 intervention support for them. And then in grades 4 through 6, we looked at their F&P level or their reading level to determine if they were below grade level and if they needed intervention. So that was kind of my round 1. And round 2, which I'm just getting into now, are students who or maybe just a little bit below it when they were doing with DIBELS, especially in 2nd and 3rd grade. And then we took into account a lot of teacher and principal recommendations as well. The intervention systems we're using for summer are all intervention systems that we're currently using at tier 3 across our district. So you heard Mr. Land mention LLI, the level literacy intervention. We use that at all 9 of our sites across the district. Sonday, Sonday is a really great system for those reading foundations like I was talking about, really a big area where we want to work on this summer. We've used this intervention system in the past, but not fully as we will be using it. I think we've had 1 or 2 groups in the past use the Sonday system, but we're using that throughout the district now. Do the Math, we've used that the last 2 years in our summer program. And then this year, we have teachers, or we have interventionists using it as a tier 3 as well. And then this is called Moving Up Mathematics over this little image here. That's really for our early mathematicians. So our kinders and our 1st graders who really need that foundational math support. I went and saw that at Santa Rita recently, where one of the interventionists is doing that, and it was just really like numbers and the 1-to-1 correspondence and really laying that foundation for success in math. Because if you don't know what the number 9 is, you can't add it to anything. This way of doing our intervention is different than the way we've done summer school the last 2 years. If you'll remember, we did what we called Summer Academy. I think Sandra and I came up with that name a couple summers ago, where it kind of mirrored more of a school day. I know many of you came to visit over the last 2 years. The model we're doing this year is actually going back to a model we used prior to the pandemic, where the students are kind of at a camp and we pull them for those intervention groups. I have not yet been the principal of this model, which, by the way, I forgot to say that I'm also summer school principal. So that's also why I'm organizing all of this. So I haven't seen this model, but I know that a lot of students loved it. When I was doing Summer Academy the first year, some of the students were like, this isn't as fun as it was before. So it's nice to kind of hear their feedback a little bit. I also really think that our smaller intervention groups that really targeted 45 minutes right on like what students need really gives us the results that we want students to have that additional time to carry it into the next school year. So I'm really optimistic that this structure will be proved to be very successful, again, both when it comes to the students and enjoying it and having fun, as well as the academic support. As of today, I have another sheet with numbers, but as of today, we have 80 students from the district enrolled to receive ELA intervention. So that's either LLI or Sonde. And of those 80, 33 will also receive math intervention. So they had to first really qualify based on ELA. This summer, we're not really saying, oh, if you just need math, then come to summer school. We're kind of using that ELA as our guideline. And if anyone who's coming needs math support, we will provide that as well. I think this is something for this year and an area we can grow on too. Not just thinking about who just needs math support and not reading support, but also could we do math enrichment and those kind of activities as well to really think about meeting the needs of a greater LASD population. So I told you a little bit about Right at School the last time I was here about ELOP. They will be doing our camp with us, and they are busy hiring. I met with the area manager just last week, and we walked the campuses. We're getting ready to go at Santa Rita specifically, since that's where the summer camp will be. But this is kind of just a sample schedule of how their day will go. What I really love about it is when they call like a themed activity throughout the day. Right at School actually writes their own curriculum or has their own curriculum and trains their staff on it for that enrichment aspect as well. They might do different, I was just looking at one the other day, that was a spring break one, and it was a STEM project, and every day they kind of built upon it, looked back, redesigned and so forth. So they have curriculum and activities built in throughout the day, which does include a little bit of enrichment time. So we have a couple different entry points in the way to get into summer school this year, which has created a lot of fun on my part. We have our students that we know we need to include through ELOP. That's again part of the requirements through ELOP. So we have some students that qualify under ELOP that get a full day of camp, and then they receive intervention if they need it. Then we have students who are just needing summer intervention. That's kind of more typical to what we've done the last few summers, right? Just focus on those students needing intervention. They'll get a half-day camp with intervention, and then they have the option to do the PM camp, so they too can get a full day of camp. And then what I'm calling our ELOP students who are just EL, as we know ELOP, it's the unduplicated. So when I just focus on the EL there, who do not need summer intervention, they just get a full day of camp. And the pricing and everything ranges within all of that as well. So now the fun part, all the numbers. So these are my round one numbers, and I kind of broke it down to different groups there. Our ELOP that are just going to camp. Our ELOP who are going to camp and qualify for intervention. Our ELOP ELs who need intervention. Our intervention students that are not EL or not ELOP. I say, how many times can I say ELOP this maybe? ELOP students who are EL who are going to camp only. So you can see in March, that's when I sent out the first round of invitations. I sent out 443 invitations. And when I sent those invitations out, I had them in English and Spanish from the get-go. I am very fortunate to have a secretary that is both English and Spanish speaking this summer too. So I think that's just going to be a huge benefit. But we sent out 443 emails. As of last week, when I put this slide together, we had 114 across the board that said yes. 73 that said no, and then that big 256 that we're waiting on. So let me tell you a little bit about what I've done and what I hope to do to reach those that I'm still waiting for. About 2 weeks ago at Santa Rita, I hosted an in-person registration morning where Sue Hay, my secretary, and I called and left voice messages for about 90 families saying that I'm gonna be out front of San Rita School from 7:45 to 9 o'clock on like this Wednesday. Come and sign up. And so we did that. I did a Monday reminder, I did the day before, and then I was out there Thursday morning. And we got about 10 families that came and signed up that morning. And what was really great is about 8 of those are the ones that we wanted to reach the most, our ELOP students who qualify for intervention. So that was really great. I had 2 translators, actually I had 3 translators to help with the Spanish speaking families. And while I was there too, I probably answered over probably 24 questions from other family members or other families who just said, oh, I can do this at home, right? I just have this question. So we did see an influx of signups from that morning. And then I'm gonna talk with Raquel Mataroli to do something similar at Almond as well. And then at Springer, I tried something new where I had, or something we've done in the past is where Denise and her office staff, Mrs. Khaled, they made direct phone calls and emails to families. Because when you get an email from me, someone named Laura Wiley, if they don't check it as often, and it's from their school principal, I feel like they check it really quick. So I'm doing that as well. So really trying to figure out all the means to reach these families. And I am sending out on Wednesday. I also did a reminder email to all of our families or all of our students invited to intervention. They got a second reminder email, and everyone's getting a reminder email this Wednesday if I have not heard from them. So really trying to reach them in different ways and all of that. It was really fun leaving a voicemail with Sue Hay, I will say that. So some other next steps. I'm going to continue with round 2 invitations, which check, I did that today already. I sent out about, what did I say? I think it was 70. No, I sent out about 50 emails today for like round 2, needing intervention mostly. Like I said, I want to do some follow-up with our intervention and camp families. Specific email to the camp only. Right at School is pretty flexible with our camp only students signing up at the last minute, more close to the deadline. For the intervention purposes, I need to make sure we have our qualified staff and a slot for them to receive the intervention. I want to use support staff to reach out to more families. And like I said, the registration table possibly at Almond one morning. Confirm the lunch program. Eric and I have been meeting a couple meetings about this. We're trying to figure out what is the best option for lunch for summer school. I have a staff meeting with the intervention teachers next week, and we're going to get them trained on any intervention program that they'll be using. And then I've already really started to think ahead. And like I said, how can we really incorporate more enrichment to this summer school? I know we've done some things in the past when it was a style like this, where we did some math enrichment, but how can we do that? How can we think about including our junior high again in summer school? Because this year we're just going through to 6th grade. So yeah, so I'm already thinking ahead to that. Okay. And then now I'm gonna just veer off a little bit and to just give you an ELOP spring update. I have been very busy on working on looking at our data and our numbers we have for ELOP and ELOP EL students for next school year. So when I look at our current students, those are next year's 1st through 6th graders. And we have about 318 across the district that qualify for after school care. And that's a range of students who are, again, an ELOP student is a student who qualifies for free and reduced lunch, is unhoused, foster, or classified as EL. So those are our students from across the district. So we're working on figuring out those, and then I'm working on confirming our incoming TK and kinders, which will be a little bit tricky in figuring out how to offer them an invitation without knowing for sure if they're an EL yet. So that's something that I've been chatting about and trying to figure out. Invitations for 3 of our sites have gone out So if you remember, we are partnering with Right at School at Almond, Covington, and Santa Rita. And those invitations went out last week. The best response I got was from a parent that said, "Thank you so much for this email. It brought tears to my eye." Almost right away. I know, it makes me want to like it. So it's really exciting that what we're offering for these families, you know, some at no cost. And so they're excited for it. There's lots of questions because it is a new program, but just to see that already. So it's, like I said, invitations are out for Right at School, Almond, Covington, and Santa Rita. And tomorrow night, sorry, we're hosting a virtual information night for those families. I sent an email last week and I sent a text message today too. I'm learning all the fancy things we can do, guys. But then I also, last week, I went and visited had conversation with our 3 other providers. If you remember, that was Children's House, that's Gardner and Loyola, YMCA's Oak, and Abracadabra's Springer. So I went and visited some of those sites and talked with the head person there to try to figure out, when do they usually do registration? How should we coordinate to make sure our district ELOP families have space in your programs? So those are all kind of almost ready to go. So that's one of my next steps, is to send out invitations for those 3 or 4 schools. Some more parent information nights. Like I said, tomorrow night we have one for Right at School. And then confirming those, especially those EL students of our incoming kinder and TK, because I know childcare is something parents look for in the spring for next year. So trying to figure out how we want to go about doing that. So that was a lot of information and hopefully not too much time. Thank you.
All right. Board have any clarifying questions? And I don't see anybody walk up with a public comment card. Any comments?
That was a very thorough presentation.
Yeah, it really was.
I have a few comments and questions. One is, I know ELOP, well, I'll start with this one. So ELOP program sounds great. It is yet another underfunded mandate from the state. So it would be helpful to us if you can get us sort of some cost estimates as soon as you can, so that when we're talking to our legislators, we can let them know specifically how much more money they're costing us every year to provide these required programs.
I believe this is a fully funded program.
Oh, is it?
Am I right, Eric?
For this year, yes.
Oh, okay, well, that would be good to know too. That wasn't the impression that I had previously.
That's the impression I had, at least for this year. But we don't know going in the future.
Anyway.
Yeah.
It'd be good to get
to know.
cost data on that.
Made a note of that, Brian.
And it's always great to also have specific numbers when we're talking to them about how many kids we're serving, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I was wondering whether there's any kind of, so ELOP stands for Extended Learning Opportunity Program. So there is supposed to be some sort of curriculum, and you were talking about that with Right at School. And I was wondering whether there's any kind of state certification, whether like somebody's gonna come along and try to audit what, instruction is being offered sort of during the extra 2.5 weeks when we're not doing interventions and it's just camp.
Great question. Yes, the auditing starts this next fiscal year. The audit guide is yet to be posted and yet to be out. We know how things work. So right now that's supposed to come out in June. So I go to many meetings around ELOP so I can make sure we're kind of going above and beyond right now. To really make sure when that audit guide comes out, it's nothing we need to worry about. And so when it comes to the curriculum, that's a conversation I've also been having. And part of the reason I wanted to go and kind of see for myself what our programs, our current providers, what their programs look like. Because what we've done in the past, this year when we had our TK, is we took each school or each LEA has to create an ELOP guide. If you remember, you guys approved that, I think last spring for ours. But what we did is we thought about what are our providers providing, and then what do we then want to put in our program guide? So that program guide keeps us pretty accountable as well. So it's something that we are constantly looking at. Ratio is another big thing that will come into play with the audit too, because we have to make sure, I think it's 1 to 15 for TKK. And then 1st through 6 is 1 to 20.
Mm.
So that will be something to take into account. So these are all things questions that I ask. If I don't know the answer from a provider, or I had a chance to look through right at school and actually see some in action in Mountain View Wisman, some of their curriculum that they've written and that they use. So, yeah.
Great. I'd be interested in seeing some of that stuff.
Okay, yeah,
Circulated at some point.
definitely.
Everyone
just want me to send a sample of that curriculum?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you send it to Sandra, she can send it to the
Okay.
board, or you can send it to us directly, that would be great. And then the last comment I had was, given the discussions we've had over the years about math and how important it is to set kids up for junior high and high school, I am a little surprised that we don't have, I would imagine in like the upper grades, 5th, 6th, kind of 7th, sort of a math specific
Entry point.
entry point for the kids who might be doing fine in ELA, but are behind in math and,
Yeah.
you know, to get them, I know we've been sort of trying to get all kids up to a certain level, so.
Yeah.
So in the future, I would be interested in seeing.
I definitely think that's something to think about in the future too, and I know one thing that we've been thinking about in the curriculum and instruction office is what kind of math screener could we use so that we're able to really understand who those students are to provide that tier 3 support or provide that additional intervention in the summer. So the conversation has definitely started, but I see what you're saying, especially with the upper grades.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other comments? I remember my comment now. And it's more along the lines of what Shelley had to say, but it's also really about the program in general. I do love that it's fully funded and it is something that we get to do. It is not something we've gotten to do in the past because we didn't have the funding for it. We do very good job with most of our demographics in our area, but we've always struggled with our most struggling students. And this ELOP program really has the potential of really moving the needle for us. And we are very thankful for that state funding.
Yes.
If you're watching Mark Berman or Josh Becker.
Yes. Yes.
So it's just more of a comment for everybody in the room, but it's really, I am hopeful and I'm hopeful that it continues to get funded. The governor, it's definitely something that he has liked.
Right.
So thank you very much for your presentation.
of course.
Yes, Vladimir, sorry.
It's okay, no problem. You mentioned that the extended school year qualification is written into an IEP. If I remember correctly, IEPs are done every 2 years. So
They are looked at annually.
They looked at that. Okay,
So like
that's the way they do-
currently, they're going through, I was looking at Jennifer since she was
Yeah.
over there. They're currently going through the preschool ones right now, I know, and that's the only list that they're still confirming, because they're kind of waiting till that, springtime to do their annual IEPs. Yep, but it's an annual IEPs, right?
A reevaluation with a large assessment every 3 years.
And that's when
That's
the extended school year gets marked as one of the things in there.
That's the annual.
That's the annual.
Yeah, okay. One question I had was, one sort of like overall question was, why do parents not sign up when their kids, we think at least their kids need interventions or need a summer school or anything?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. One thing that's always hard is figuring out when the right time to send out invitations are. Families schedule big trips. I know camps open pretty early for registration, and I know it can be quite competitive for other camps in our area. And so I would say like come January, I start getting is my kid gonna be invited to summer school? But then what's also tricky is we want to use the most up-to-date data, because even what I'll do now is when we get our new Dibbles data and our new F&P levels from spring, is I'll really confirm these invitations, and that's the data I'll use to group them. So it's that balance of wanting to invite parents early enough, but also wanting to use data that's realistic and up to date. And so that makes it tricky, just the timing of invitations. Also, just the trip idea of parents scheduling trips, and for intervention, because it's only 18 days, we really want students to come to all 18 days. And I get the question probably a couple times a week, can I just come for 2 weeks? And that's and I'm brutally honest, and 10 days of intervention, it doesn't matter how, if that's it's tricky. We need them there for the full 18 days. So I don't ever turn anyone away by any means if they can't come the 18 days, but we have a conversation, usually that parent and I through email or a phone conversation of how many days are you gonna actually miss? And would it be reasonable, or does it seem like that might not be the right fit, this intervention program, the right fit at this time for your family?
Good. I guess, one last question with our interventions. How do we know that we're doing the right thing? How do we know our success?
Yeah, so all the interventions that we're using for summer, we're using currently in tier 3, and I think that's kind of what I can use to answer your question, is that we use progress monitoring when students are receiving a tier 3 intervention. So for example, if they're in a Sunday group, every other week, they are given a progress monitoring assessment or like a little check-in that tells us like, are they progressing within the skills that we're really reinforcing and trying to teach them? And those are the same skills that are measured on the DIBELS benchmark assessments. So we're able to see a student who's in an intervention. We have 3 benchmark throughout the year. And then we also have multiple progress monitoring reports throughout. So we're really able to see if the intervention is working for a student or if it's not.
The last comment I have is, so from mid-July essentially to mid-August, there's nothing.
Well, end of July, the camp ends July 28th.
Okay, all right, so then it's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Is there any need on the part of students for something during those 3 weeks, or is it just they're glad to be out of there?
I mean, I've heard different things. I definitely have heard some families that's when they know that they're gonna schedule some, family trips or whatnot. Some families have also scheduled other camps as well too. It really is dependent upon the family, what their needs are. I have yet to hear, is there anything else after this? But I'm sure that is a question. Just because I haven't heard it doesn't mean parents aren't wondering about that. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to special education updates. Everybody's awake. Sally will be the one that's crashing.
It's like 11 o'clock. It's down the dream team here.
I know, right. Thank you. Good evening, board members, superintendent. Thank you for allowing us to do a little quick update for special education this evening. I am thrilled to be able to lead a department that is just filled with dedication and talent and expertise. And tonight we have 2 people that are going to be sharing that tonight. We have Dana Hardister. She is our therapeutic special ed class teacher at Egan, one of the many hats she wears. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about the impact of trauma, what that looks like. I'm using kind of a social emotional lens. I have Erin Griswold, who is our lead behaviorist. She is a board certified behavior analyst. If you've heard of BCBA, those words, that's her title. And she will give us a little overview of how we support students with behaviors and what kind of changes we've seen this year. And together they really highlight just kind of the depth of expertise that we have in our department and how we support students really beyond the classroom. So if you can go to the next slide. And then this.
You use the clicker.
Oh, I do. Look at that. All right. So we're gonna. Anyway, we talked. I'm gonna start off with talking a little bit about kind of some trends that we've seen after the pandemic. And as I said, Dana's gonna talk to us a little bit about trauma-informed intervention. And Erin's gonna talk to us about behavior, and then I'm gonna wrap it up a little bit talking about inclusive practices and what we're looking at kind of for next year. So to kind of set the tone and set the stage, after the pandemic, we were really proud of our department for being able to support and service our students. You guys heard about that. But we did come back into the world that there are still a lot of impact that we've seen through what's happened. We've seen a lot of behaviors that are interfering with learning, and there's it's hard to see, but there's a really destroyed kinder classroom there with everything's on the ground. So we've seen a lot of kiddos coming in with some pretty extreme behaviors that we haven't seen, and at more places and more often. We've seen some social isolation, students,
you have really missed some of that, being able to work through some of the normal conflicts of, you know, social friendships, and then not having that support there and not knowing and jumping in a year later. And we're seeing a lot more anxiety and depression leading from that, a lot more social withdrawal. We're seeing school and work refusal, and just being able to, being able to go along with the flow and the flexibility of thought has kind of decreased in general. Anxiety and depression, school refusals is definitely something we're seeing. That used to just be a junior high conversation, and now it's all the way down to TK. And then we've seen a lot more dependence on adult support for emotional regulation, for social regulation, and for adult learning. A lot more one-on-one needed that we hadn't seen before. So with that, I want to hand it over to Penny.
All right, so there are 4 types of trauma. So complex trauma can result from physical or emotional abuse, poverty, lack of resources, neglect, and community violence. And then shock trauma, some examples can be a pandemic that we just finished, so COVID-19, community fires, floods, earthquakes, unexpected violent acts, and unexpected loss of loved ones. And then secondhand trauma is people who work with students experiencing trauma, and then also people who watch an act of violence on TV. And then collective, cultural, and intergenerational trauma. Some examples are systematic repression, racism, poverty, and war. So these are all things that are affecting students in our schools in different ways, and also possibly some of our staff. So within the effects of trauma, cognitive effects can include but are not limited to disorientation or confusion, mood swings, loss of memory and concentration abilities, and nightmares. And then for behavioral effects, that can include social isolation and withdrawal, and lack of interest in previously enjoyable activities. And then physical effects of trauma can include edginess, extreme fatigue and exhaustion, insomnia, weakened immune system, and complaints of aches and pains. And then psychological effects of trauma can include obsessive compulsive behaviors, depression, anxiety, guilt and shame, irritability, and panic attacks. So knowing that, we have been looking at what trauma-informed education kind of looks like within our special ed world, and we've done some training for our teachers and our support staff. So we want to make sure in our classrooms that we're giving our students choices when they get to that point and they're feeling that they can't control anything. We want to kind of give them some choices, maybe a forced choice sometimes, and if they can't make the choice, then we help them choose something. Use invitational language and be inclusive about what we're saying, especially with some of our students with gender identity and things like that. We want to make sure that we're making sure everybody is feeling included. We want them to activate if they can. We want them to get out of the circle that they're in because it's not helping them. And when they're filled up so high, nothing can go in. So what are those activities that they can do that get them out of that? So whether it's a word search or coloring or whatever that might be, giving them those choices to get them out so that then they can start regulating again. And then we always want to encourage reflection so that they can start to see maybe patterns for what happened before they got to that point, how they were feeling when they were in it, and how they got out of it. And then finally, when we did the trainings with the teachers and the support staff, we gave them activities that they could do with about age level range, but not necessarily grade. I mean, it had grade level ranges on it, but also depending on who your students were, things that would kind of speak to those students. So they were given activities and then they got to sit in groups and they practiced them so that when they went to work with a student, they'd at least run through it before. So all activities that were given had CASEL competencies that went with them. So the majority of those competencies were self-management, social awareness, and self-awareness. And then they were always given, each activity had a purpose so that they knew what the purpose of that activity was. For example, with 3 collective breaths, the purpose of that activity is to release negative energy, regulate emotion, and develop mind-body connection. And then each one of those are just 4 that I think they were given about 6 or 8 activities. And then each one of those had them. And then at the end, it also gave them a description that they went through to teach. And we also impressed upon, if you skip things or you do it, it's okay. It's just the fact that the student is participating helps them do. And so a lot of these activities were around mindfulness. In here.
Right. So I'm Erin, I'm from Los Altos Behavior Services. So I just want to take a little bit of time to explain a little bit more about what we are and what we do. I've been here for 10 years now, and this program has just grown really big over the time I've been here. And so everybody, I think most teachers in district know they want labs, but they don't necessarily know about all the things that we do. They know they want us. So we have 3, we're built on 3 different levels. There are the behaviorists, and we put together programs, and there's currently 4 of us. There's 3 of us right there, and then we were lucky enough to have a 4th one that joined us in January. So we oversee the programs, and then we have 4 of what we call our BIT 2s, which is our behavior intervention technician level 2s, and they help support our programs. They help with our coaching and our training and running meetings, things like that. And then most of our support is done by our BIT 1s, which is our level 1 behavior techs, and they're the ones that are directly supporting students within the classroom. They're doing the direct services that are outlined on IEP services. So they're the ones that are in the trenches in the classrooms. So that's just an overview of the different levels of what we provide. And then here are how we support students. So first, we're supporting our students, and they're mainly students that have IEP services. So they're services that are written into their IEPs. They may be written in as direct services. Most of the time, we're pushing into classrooms and supporting students, whether it's in a special day classroom or a mainstream classroom. A lot of times it's been out at recess, supporting their social interactions out there. So we're doing a lot of direct services. We might do some pull-out services if a student needs extra teaching around some of the skills before they can generalize it to the classroom, but most of the time we're in the classroom. We also are really big on respond to student crisis. So all these behaviors saying where students are aggressive in the classroom, that picture you saw where student is tantruming, where we are destroying a classroom, property destruction, running out. Sandra's in the street with me, redirecting traffic to make sure our students are safe and that we're handling these crises in a safe way that are going to help support our students and so nobody gets hurt. And then we have a big array of social skills programs that we offer in the district. So we have a program for our 1st and 2nd graders that we call Kid Stars, and that's for general education students and students on IEPs. It's open to both. And then we have for our students who are a little bit older, we have social skills groups that the behaviorist runs with the school psychologist. And those are something I really tried to promote because I think that social skills and the social emotional learning has been really important for students as they get older. And then we also do Play Zone, which is a recess support. So we'll push in at recess time, we'll set up different games so we can get kids interacting and not just sitting on the sidelines. The other level of what we do is we do a lot of staff education. It's really important to me. We push into classrooms and we might be there for a few hours a week or more, but that's just a small amount of time. We want to make sure that the strategies that we're trying to use with students are not just for a short time, they're the whole time that they're there. So are the teachers, are the staff, does everyone know and understand how to use these strategies? So we do a lot of staff and teacher trainings and overlaps and modeling of using strategies. And then the last tier is around our parent consultation. We work with parents to help provide them with information around what are the strategies we're using at school that's really effective for them. This is what we found that's worked. Give them that information from home. I was able to do a coffee with the principal day over at Oak and had some parents come and I got to do a little training and do like a Q&A with them to help give them some ideas of how to implement strategies in the home setting. Yeah, let's have team meetings with parents, we include them so that they're really aware of what happens. And then if students have home programs, things like that, we also do a lot of collaboration with their home programs, so everyone's on the same page. And then I just want to talk a little bit about, especially I'd say in this last year, we have really helped stepped up supporting students who don't necessarily have an IEP or don't have behavior services yet. We've seen an increase in students with these challenging behaviors in the classrooms. And so what can we do to help support those students? One of our main things is our safety care training, and that is our crisis prevention training. So we have used safety care in this district because it uses a lot of evidence-based strategies. It uses a lot of proactive strategies. So we're not just focusing on the reactive. How can we prevent problems from happening in the first place? We've been lucky enough that we've trained almost all of our special education staff. Our school principals are all trained. Our school psychologists are trained. And then this year, we're starting to train more and more of our general education teachers. If they have a really challenging student in the classroom, our TK and K instructional assistants, for them to be able to come to have these strategies for them. We've also done, actually Laura and I to do at the beginning of this year, we did a tier 1 behavior training for our TK and K teachers and instructional assistants. When we saw the challenges that were happening, especially at the beginning, we wanted to go through and review with them and give them some ideas of ways that they could help and support their students at more of that strategies that we would use for our younger students. So Laura and I got to do that. A lot of consultation with school staff, a lot of meetings. I said a lot of meetings, but working with them on different ideas around what they can do and coming to us and just asking for different suggestions and things to try. And then one other huge thing is we really helped with development of like crisis plans and this idea of a coordinated response plan. So that just helps our teachers if they have a student in their class that is displaying these really challenging behaviors. What do I do? Who do I call? Instead of like kind of getting anxious and worried about it, there's a plan already set out for them so they know exactly what to do. So we're working with especially our school psychologists around helping to set those up for those teachers. And then just a little bit about how labs, I've seen it change this year. So as I said, direct behavior services is the main service that we do with our behavior intervention technicians. But over the year, I'd say from last year, this year, we've definitely grown in what we've seen, the intensity and frequency and of the challenging behaviors we're seeing in classrooms. So for example, last year, labs had where we either saw students in a direct capacity or potentially with consultation services. We saw about 75 to 80 students last year, whereas this year our numbers are 110, 115 students. So it's really grown on the number of students that we're supporting in the district. And then to go with that, it's just a higher number of our younger students. So this second point here about the students receiving one-to-one bits, those are students who qualify that receive a behavior therapist support throughout the entire day. So their aid is coming from a behavior therapist, meaning they need the higher level of reinforcement. Maybe they need several breaks during the day. Their behaviors are challenging enough where they need that highly trained person to be supporting them to help with those behaviors. So right now, currently, we have in our kindergarten TK through 3rd grade, there's 13 students who receive a one-to-one bit, whereas for our 4th grade all the way up to 8th grade, there's only 8 students who receive a one-to-one. So we're definitely seeing a higher number with those younger students that are engaging in those behaviors. And like Jennifer is saying, that room that you saw that was a TK room, we have similar different classrooms around the district where that's happening. Our younger students, they're engaging in behaviors that are just a lot more disruptive than I had seen in previous years, that are disruptive, not just to their own learning, which I think is what we've seen, but starting to with students around them. So we just want to make sure we're supporting them in a safe way. And building on those behaviors. So that's where our social emotional programming comes in. We have done, in the past, we had a lot of direct services. So meaning we're pushing into the classroom and supporting there. We've started to do more pull-out services, which means that some of the students are requiring individualized teaching before they're ready to generalize that skill. So we're seeing that we want to role play these different scenarios with them or outline different perspective taking skills and problem solving skills and what is your reaction, is that matching, and really breaking that all down for them. And so they're able to then transfer it into the classroom. And then making sure that we are training the school staff on being up to date with what all these different strategies are. We just have a higher number of students, like I said, with behavior intervention plans, so individualized plans, which then mean teachers need to require more training on making sure they're implementing these throughout the day. So everyone's doing everything consistently. Yeah, that's in a nutshell like what labs is.
And they do so much.
Yes. We do a lot.
And again, so Dana has led trainings to teachers and our instructional assistants on trauma and how to be able to look at through trauma informed lens when they're doing interventions with students. And so she's been a teacher leader through that. And then Erin and her team have just done lots of trainings to pretty much anyone who said that they need it for like a lot. Yes. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about just moving forward. We've noticed that we really need to work on our inclusive practices as well. I've prided ourselves on being able to move forward. You know, we have an inclusive preschool now. 10 years ago, we did not. We have co-teaching that is a standard at our junior highs and at some of our elementary schools, which again was a new practice from before. But we do want to still work on the meaningfulness of the inclusion. And so we know that our students have new needs coming to us. And we know that they want to come to school and they want to feel the belonging in the classroom and they want to feel the friendships out on the yard, right? We know this, all students want this, and the students under my department are the same. And so we know we have to do a little bit of work to kind of get back to the levels that we were before the pandemic, before the isolation kind of affected a lot of things. So our plan next year is to be able to work with all teachers on helping them find access points to being able to teach all diversity of students in their classroom. And so that's our job as a special education department, is work with all teachers to feel that they have those access points and they know where to start with any student that comes into their classroom, forever how long that may be. And we want to work on supporting our peers to be friends out on the yard for kids that might act differently, might be having different behaviors that they're not used to, and how they can still be friends and be able to have those authentic relationships. So we'll be doing some work this summer to be preparing for that and being able to see what we can do to support the larger LASD community on those inclusive practices. And any questions or comments?
Board have any comments or questions? Yeah, just a clarifying question. You're talking about disruptive behaviors. I was wondering, are you seeing violent behaviors or fights or?
Describe violence, because we have a threshold that's different.
They're not, I mean, yes, we've seen aggression and we've seen like the throwing behaviors, or they'll throw items and throw things down. I'd say our staff is really well trained though to get in front of things before it escalates beyond that. So I don't think violent as far as students we've had anyone get severely hurt or anything like that student wise, but they are aggressive, like pushing each other or hitting each other, those kind of things.
We've had teachers that, I mean, we've had teachers that had more aggression towards them than they have in the past, and that's scary.
I'd say our eloping behaviors are the scary ones too, the students who run off campus and who run towards streets. So those students are ones we have definitely that coordinated response of who's going to be, we're a hands-off school district, which means that we don't restrain students in any way, but we have a lot of things in place to make sure nobody gets hurt. And so we are blocking traffic, we are redirecting things, we're asking people to help clear rooms, that kind of stuff.
Any more questions, clarifying questions, any board comments?
What's your greatest unmet need?
Staffing. Yeah, I say to find good people. I mean, I have amazing people. I have an amazing department. I don't have enough. We still haven't had, and we haven't been fully staffed for speech therapy this year.
How many are you missing?
1.5.
Comment along those lines is, and I'll talk more about it later, but we were in DC this last week advocating for funding for various things that the federal government funds. One of them, they had a promise back in the day of 40% of funding. We looked at our budget, and what we get is 4.9% from the federal government. Another 29% from the states, I believe, and then the rest is borne by our general fund. So that is to say, you guys are doing a lot of amazing work, and I'm just amazed at what you can do for our students with what little money we have for it. So thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to also express my thanks and appreciation. I brag about our school district in a gracious way, because trauma-informed teaching is a little bit newer than, people are just starting to think about it, and I'm like, well, we've been doing it for a few years now. I think that this school district is amazing because we have amazing people who are progressive and they think about these things, and it's all of you. And just to underscore what Jessica said, you're doing incredible things, like with not enough staffing and not enough money. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah. Any other comments? Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
On to staff housing update.
Yes, so we have some friends who've been here sitting through a little bit for our meeting, but wanted to bring back tonight an opportunity came up several meetings ago. You all approved 12 units at the Grant. Yes.
Yes, Grant.
Palo Alto, Grant Road, Grant Avenue, development, sorry. Late, it's past my bedtime. And so an opportunity came up between that meeting and very recently with one of our partner school districts not moving forward with their units. So an opportunity for us to acquire additional units. There are 12 additional units available. We've talked a little bit about how we can possibly fund these additional units. We've resurveyed our staff to make sure. I know we're still a couple of years out, but this is a 30-year commitment for us. So when we looked at how might we be able to afford something like this with additional units, we've talked about taking one of our big lighting project and actually using bond funds to pay for that lighting project so we can free up the general fund money to be able to have this investment for our staff for the next 30 years. So tonight we are just seeing if you have any questions and would like to approve 12 additional units.
Any board questions or comments? And I'd like to say that, I know some of us have not otherwise liked the bond going for maintenance, but knowing that we have in the works in future board meetings and study sessions having to do with facilities and the facilities master plan, knowing that we're gonna have more cemented in for everything makes me more amenable to spend that bond money. Not on the 10th side. Anybody else have any questions? All right.
Yes, I just wanted, do you know what the units are, like studios, one that is one? I'm just curious.
Same allocation.
It's a mix of the same allocation. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I can provide an update on that to you. It's essentially a mix of a very similar allocation that you were, printed for studios.
And that being said, the last time we had this meeting, we asked for more units and it happened. So I know I didn't cover that, but I just we want this as something to support our staff and future staff. This is, we're doing everything we can within our means to do what's right for our staff and teachers. And I love that we got this option. So thank you very much for that. So let's vote. Do I get a motion to?
Yes.
I believe I have to get the word out. Do I get a motion to approve the amended and restated funding agreement for the 231 Grant Educator Workforce Housing Project?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Passes 5-0. All right, board and administration, comments, Carrie? All right, Eric?
Thank you.
All right, anything more, Sandra? All right, Steve? All right, Brian?
Nope.
I'll let you have the floor.
No, we'll go through that now. All right, then Shelley, I still go last.
You still go on. I'm gonna let you talk about our trip to DC
Okay.
and what it was for. I just want to say that I feel very grateful to have had the opportunity to go and to learn so much. And I just really wanted to give a sincere shout out to our Congresswoman, Anna Eshoo, who is so supportive and is such an ally of everything we bring up about children and mental health and physical health and supporting families. We could not ask for a more compassionate representative in Congress.
Going specifically to see her was just like preaching to the choir. And she did ask for some extra ideas on things too. So I apologize, I have a bunch of things I did, and then I will get to that. We haven't seen each other in a month. So I actually toured the Sunnyvale shelter, and I'll actually be touring with you again in the future. There is a shelter that is run by or run for the county in Sunnyvale, and it would actually house our unhoused families, Mountain View's unhoused families, Sunnyvale's unhoused families. There are currently 31 students that fit in the North County area in that shelter. And they are, they're in a low barrier shelter, which means anybody can go there. At least now they are separated out, so that's good to hear. But there's so much more that could be happening for them in that shelter. And they could be having our students. We don't know that, but they could. Had challenge team did the Los Altos Mountain View Community Foundation community convening. Had my first Rotary meeting along with Sandra. We're gonna become Rotarians. It's gonna be great. We're gonna help continue to tip their numbers of women. It was a great meeting for us in that it was celebrating that it actually had 50-50. They didn't allow women till 1904. And then it was until 1996 that they get a woman president of that organization. And I had PTA presidents meeting. We all had JO. Went to the Women's Leadership and Policy Summit this weekend put on by Cindy Chavez, and that was amazing. I specifically went to like women elected sort of breakout sessions, just because sort of a jam. And that is it. I won't bother you with stuff I'm doing in the future. But we did do the CSBA Coast to Coast up in DC. And what it entailed was a bunch of days of training on subject matters that they wanted us to go out and advocate for with our federal legislators. A lot of the time when they're training us on things, it's for stuff that doesn't necessarily affect our district, but at the federal level, it generally does. Almost everything they covered what we cared about, some things more than others. So when we met with Anna Eshoo, we focused on special education funding, and I had the real data, and then also staff retention and hiring and the shortages. And I was able to give her the data from the LATA survey, thanks to Mr. Hazelton. And when we were just talking back and forth, she's like, what else can I do? And I mentioned, and a bunch of us mentioned loan forgiveness for teachers. Which wasn't in necessarily the paperwork that CSBA gave us, but we're constantly thinking outside of the box of beyond salary, because there's only so much we can do. What else can we do? So that went well. There were other things that didn't have to necessarily do with us, like rural schools. And there were stuff related to alternative schools, which does affect us tangentially, but we don't really have that in the TK through 8 base. So that went wonderfully,
We
and
talked about mental health.
we did talk about
The-
mental
yeah,
health. Yes,
the-
thank
the-
you.
The need for more therapists, for mental health professionals to create a pipeline.
Yeah.
But then also more services for our kids and what our kids are experiencing.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think that is it.
Question,
Yes,
charter schools come up?
charter schools did not come up because CSBA is neutral on that. And that's, yeah, that's
Okay,
it.
that's all.
All right, meeting adjourned.